Hello, I'm Brian Fox. Welcome to my channel, I Hate Rock Music. And today I'm going to do something that a thousand other YouTubers have done, albeit a little differently. And a thousand other YouTubers have created Beatle records using their solo material as if the Beatles had existed in 70, 71, 72. And that's pretty fun. I've done the same kind of speculation, and I'm going to do some more today. I've decided to jump in the fray and speculate about a final Beatles album in 1970. And for me, it really hits home because I grew up hearing the Beatles, and I really enjoyed them. I loved the cartoon show when I was a kid. And then in 1968, Hey Jude and the Beatles' White Album came out and changed my life forever. And I became a diehard Beatles fan. And it was very disappointing for me to find out in 1969 that they were done. And so, as quickly as I became a diehard Beatles fan, it was all over. I was looking forward to many more years of Beatles records. And of course, 1969, they were very, very busy. They did Abbey Road and they recorded Let It Be, which was released in 1970. And those are great albums. Those are a great end to the Beatles' career, certainly in a lot of ways. And I think that Abbey Road is so sophisticated and so consummate. It's very fitting as their last album. But I'm going to speculate on what I would have loved to have seen with one last final album in 1970, kind of picking up where the Beatles' White Album left off and kind of milking the same territory as Abbey Road, and then Let It Be. And so there's a lot of songs that I think would have been great as a final Beatles album. I chose the wonderful cover for the Hey Jude album, a great summary of the last days of the Beatles, and then chose the title All Things Must Pass. So let's say they lasted one more year into 1970, knew they were going to split up, and then called the album All Things Must Pass. So that made sense to me. And when I look at all these songs from their solo works, and specifically singles that were released as solo works, like John Lennon's songs Instant Karma and Cold Turkey, I imagine one last Beatle album in 1970 using some of the last Beatles works that weren't on albums, and then some choice material from their solo albums. I think would have been an amazing last album called All Things Must Pass. And I'm going to bypass the rules of only two Harrison tunes being allowed. I'm going to fantasize and say that in the final days of the Beatles, they realized he had a lot of great songs and they gave him equal footing on one final album. And when I selected these songs, I think they have a really nice flavor altogether. And then, of course, to take it a step further, imagine all of these songs with the George Martin production. And of course all these songs with the Beatles playing on them, including Ringo Starr's drumming, and then the John Lennon and George Harrison adding guitar parts to them. And of course a lot of these solo works we have Lennon and Harrison and McCartney playing guitars on them, but imagine them all together again, and more specifically the wonderful harmonies that they would have added to all this material. It would have made a spectacular last album. And just like a lot of videos I've posted on my channel, I still dream of great lost rock albums. And that's what us rock nerds do. We fantasize about records that could have been. And in this case, I'm not alone. As I pointed out, there's thousands of YouTubers that have posted post 1970 Beatle albums that they would have loved to have seen. And I could go a step further and go year by year, 1971, 1972, 1973. It's a fun exercise, but I'm going to stick to this one because I think the material all probably would have been written during the Beatles' lifetime in those last days, and it would have been great to have them compiled on a record by the Beatles. And so the songs I picked were a few songs that came out under the Beatles name, Ballad of John and Yoko, Old Brown Shoe, and Don't Let Me Down. I think Don't Let Me Down is one of the most beautiful Beatles songs of all time and deserved to be highlighted on a full record. So my whole track listing is 16 songs. That would be 8 per side, which would be very feasible because there are a lot of shorter songs. And so I think it makes a great package. So my picks are not necessarily in order. All Things Must Pass, The Ballad of John and Yoko, Isn't It a Pity, Beware of Darkness, That Would Be Something, Old Brown Shoe, Every Night, Maybe I'm Amazed, Cold Turkey, Instant Karma, My Sweet Lord, Don't Let Me Down, Hold On, Love, God, and finish it up with Give Peace a Chance. What a great way that would be to end my dream album, to have Give Peace a Chance. And so we have a lot of great ballads on there, and then we have a pretty decent number of rockers, Old Brown Shoe and Cold Turkey and Instant Karma would all be great rockers, and then a lot of mid tempo material, and I think they all complement each other really well. And a good example is I would love to hear a Beatles version of Maybe I'm Amazed with their harmony vocals on it and a George Martin production. That would be great. And the same thing with All Things Must Pass. Instead of the Phil Spector production he got on his solo album when he did some of these songs like Isn't It a Pity and Beware of Darkness, it'd be great to have a George Martin production on them instead. It would have been a little more, well, a lot more sensitive than Phil Spector's production. And um, and of course, songs like Cold Turkey and Instant Karma would have been great in the Beatles' hands, just the same way the Ballad of John and Yoko was. And then, of course, the Lennon songs, Hold On, Love, and God, with a little bit of contribution and some background vocals by the Beatles, would have taken them to the next level. But I got no complaints about their solo material. It's wonderful, and those solo albums are great. But for me, this would be a great fantasy lineup for a final record in 1970 to sum things up at the end of that decade, and some of the best material that they were working on for their solo projects. If they could have contributed one last time. And another distinction that this makes is it's 16 songs that are all relatively short and very straightforward. So it would have been a nice addition at the end compared to um, Abbey Road with I Want You, She's So Heavy taking up a huge chunk of that record, and then the kind of incongruency of Let It Be as an album. And so this would just be icing on the cake for me. So there's my fantasy Beatles record from 1970, and I did it. I wanted to do it, and I did it. I had to do it. Everybody else was doing it, so I did too. I'm Brian Fox. Thanks for watching I Hate Rock Music.